Hello, everyone. My name is Brett Keane, and today I'm going to be discussing employment, jobs, and how the world basically impacts the family structure, the system in which we know of mothers and fathers and wives and husbands and children. One of the things that is really nice about being a writer for myself is that I get to spend a lot of time with my family and a lot of time with my children. I'm not a billionaire. I don't make money like Stephen King, and I'm not up there with Stephen Hawking or anything, nor Richard Dawkins, that's for sure. I'm just a guy who writes and makes a little bit off of what he works for. But there's a lot of people out there who work really hardcore, strenuous jobs. There's people out there who work in restaurants. There's people who work in construction. And they spend a good amount of their days and hours trying to either build roads or construct new buildings and empires. How there's people out there that spend many, many months building churches and organizations. And it's pretty rough when you think about it, because there's a lot of people out there who barely get to spend any hours whatsoever with their children. They go to work, and then by the time they do finally get to come home, they're extremely wore out. Their mind isn't in the right place. And usually by the time a lot of parents get home, their children are asleep and getting ready for the next morning, in which they get onto a bus and they go to school. And that's how our society is set up. Is it no wonder why it is that people work dead-end jobs? Is it no wonder that people spend half their life going through schools, high school, college, universities, and whatever it takes so they can get the education that will ultimately set them on a path to where they'll be working for the rest of their life? And if they do decide to have any family or create any value within their own home besides buying material things, they'll never have the time that they wish they had with their families. And by the time people get to be about 60, 70 years old and they're on some kind of pension or some kind of disability or Social Security or any of these things, they are too old at this point to play baseball with their kids, and their children are already grown up going through the same system they themselves had to go through. By the time parents end up getting to the point where they're free to have hours and time to spend with their kids, they're too old and they've got one foot in the grave and one foot barely hanging on. And I am very sympathetic, and I feel bad for the people out there that got to go through this. And when they finally do have the time to be able to play with their children are already off to school, soon high school, then college, and so on. I remember one of the big dreams that I had a long time ago was being a full-fledged musician. Got members together, also worked with my brother, and thought about going and doing like touring and doing stuff where I go out on the road and play and all that kind of stuff. My brother, he still has that dream. He's still a young man who wants to do all that kind of stuff. I myself, I'd rather just write stories, write books, and do what I do, spend time with my family. I've watched a lot of documentaries where musicians and stuff have failed, and they last for a little time, and sometimes they end up getting very popular or famous, and then they get to a point where they burn out and their fans don't even give a shit about them, and by the time that happens, half their life is over. And of course, there's the influence of drugs and many horrid things that happen to musicians and shit that cause them to not be the same person anymore. Usually not only burns them out as a musician, but as a human too. But the point is that is it no wonder why there's so many divorces, why there's so much problems in society and in our world? Is it no wonder? It's blamed on parents for not spending enough time with their children. It's blamed on parents why it is that the younger generation is failed. It seems to me the more technology we get and the more structure and the more organizations and clubs and corporations we build, the more time parents and adults are going to have to spend doing these hardcore jobs and then coming home having to be responsible for their young people. And even if they're young children or teenagers or kids that are grown up, they don't have the stability or the ability to be able to encourage their young people to be able to do more. We have to count on our teachers and our principals and high schools and organizations to be able to basically babysit and do the parenting for everyone. It's pretty tough. It's pretty tough for a person, a human being, to get his own unique identity. It's pretty hard for a person to have their own individual perspectives and ideas when all week long they're going to school or they're working, and then on Sunday, their day off, they go to church or they go to an atheist convention or whatever they're doing, and they don't really have the kind of time that they wish that they had. It's very strange. Society is basically set up to where it works us from the day we're able to the day we die. Or at least to the day where we can't function as normal human beings anymore, whatever normal means. So what can be done about these things? What is the solution? What is the solution so people can make enough money to be able to pay their bills that society has set up for them in these organizations? The moment that you work your ass off all your life, you end up coming home having to give 90% of your money away to pay your bills, pay rent, pay a mortgage, and pay for the clothing on your back, the food that you eat. And by that time, it's as if you've worked all this time just merely to survive. There's some people that make so much money and shit that they don't even have to wipe their own ass anymore. They can pay somebody to do it. And I think it's pretty unfair. One of the things I really don't understand about our society is our sports. Sports. There's people out there who play football, a situation in which they can get disabled or crippled at any time if something goes wrong on the field. It's expected that whenever you go out in the field, it is actually expected in football as well as hockey that someone is going to get damaged or hurt. But what is weird about it is that people who play baseball and football and all these sports that people consider a tradition, they make so much money, millions and millions of dollars. They sign contracts that will ensure that they win more than an average person who wins the lotto would ever make. However, our teachers and the system doesn't get paid hardly anything. Isn't that odd? There are actually baseball players out there and football players out there who make more money than a person who's went to school all of their life in order to become a doctor or become someone who's trying to help advance things. More money than a person who's actually trying to physically and mentally help other people. And, when you think about it, and this is something that I've had on my mind quite a bit, it's no wonder there's so many churches around my area, especially other areas. Is it no wonder there's so many people who work in churches? A church offers a person who has a minuscule education to be able to just simply read a book called the Bible and work in a church, and all they have to do is every Wednesday and Sunday is throw a meal, our picnic, our family thing, and then they sit there and they talk for 2 hours, maybe 3, depending on the preacher or the particular denomination, and they get fucking paid just to talk to you and tell you about fucking church stories that you've probably learned in Sunday school over and over and over again. The only difference is when they tell you the stories, they try to, in a clever, witty way, relate the stories, these mythological stories, to your own reality, your own life. In my little fucking shit town in the woods, we have only a few different type of places that a person could work. You can either work in a restaurant as a waitress or a cook, or you work as a mechanic, which there's lots of mechanic shops, or you work in a fucking bar where you clean stools or give people drinks of alcohol to numb their fucking pains and woes. are just for people to socialize. We have a bowling alley, we have a skating rink, we have basically minuscule forms of entertainment. It's either that or you go out to a movie theater or rent a movie. But the jobs are, you're either a lawyer, a mechanic, a preacher, or a damn barmaid. And I can understand why people would want to be preachers. There'd be a lot of people in my town out of business if it was discovered for a fact that there was no God and religion was pure horse shit. There's no way a lot of people in the United States of America would ever admit that there is no God and that religion is horse shit and it's just another way to be able to organize people so they can make money and control folks. It's interesting. Whether you believe that government and church are separate from each other doesn't even matter. Even if government and church actually had some invisible wall separating it, it wouldn't matter, because the government and religion stand for the same damn thing: control. Control and manipulation, and it actually manipulates you throughout your entire life until you're fucking dead. And even then, when you die, you're going to have to keep on paying, aren't you? You're going to have to figure out a way to be able to pay for your own goddamn hole in the ground. You've been listening to Brett Keane. I hope you all enjoyed my story.